Welcome to English Plus Podcast, the English we speak, and much more. Learn English, expand your knowledge, and enjoy through our vocabulary builder, novel, grammar, series, word power, poetry, and literature episodes. All our episodes come with full transcripts, quizzes, downloadable worksheets, and more exclusive content you get only by listening to English Plus Podcast. Support English Plus Podcast by becoming a patron of the show on Patreon. Use the link in the description and become a patron of English Plus Podcast. There are many benefits to becoming a patron of our show, so what are you waiting for? Click the link and check them out on my Patreon page. But above all, support English Plus Podcast and help our free e-learning journey continue. Welcome to the new Word Power episode from English Plus Podcast. In Word Power episodes, we're going to read a text and learn some words that are included in the text. So we will be learning words in context. So if you take Word Power and Vocabulary Builder that we have every week, you will have a lot of words to learn every week, and all of these are learned in context so that you can enrich your active vocabulary bank. But before I leave it to Ben to read the text to you, I will tell you about the 10 words we're going to learn today. These words are consistent, endear, exploits, figment, jocular, portray, scenario, spoils, ultimate, and unflagging. So now I will leave it to Ben and we'll get back to talk about the words in detail. Let's start with our text today, which is about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Possibly as early as the 12th century, traveling minstrels began singing ballads in praise of the exploits of a thief named Robin Hood. His skill in archery, his free and easy lifestyle in Sherwood Forest, and, perhaps most of all, his ability to outwit the Sheriff of Nottingham endeared him to the common people. In ballad after ballad, Robin Hood was consistently pictured as one who stole only from the rich and shared the spoils of his actions with the poor. Even though the legends portray him as the enemy of the nobility, Robin Hood possessed an unflagging loyalty to his king, Richard the Lion-Hearted. This feeling was shared by many people at the time. As the stories of his remarkable champion of the people increased in number, so did the size of his colorful band of thieves. A huge hulk of a man called Little John became Robin's most trusted follower. Alan a Dale, a minstrel, entertained the group around the evening campfire. The fat and jocular Friar Tuck kept everyone amused. In later ballads, Robin acquired a sweetheart maid Marian. This story included all the traditional romantic qualities: danger, secret meetings, disguises, and the ultimate triumph of true love. Was Robin Hood a living, breathing human being, or merely the figment of some balladier's imagination? Those who claim him to be real offer an interesting and believable scenario. The laws protecting the king's forests and deer were quite strict in 12th century England. Perhaps a hunter accidentally killed one of the king's deer. As a wanted man, he may have gone into hiding in the deepest part of the forest. There, he might have been joined by sympathetic supporters. Apart from the ballads, however, firm evidence of Robin Hood's existence is hard to find. No scholar or historian of the time mentions him. The events described in the various stories simply could not have happened in the course of one lifetime. Even so, the romantic picture of the Prince of Thieves endures in modern poems, operas, and movies. Robin Hood clearly lives on in legend.
Well, Thank you very much, Ben, for reading this exciting story for us. It's about Robin Hood, the exploits of Robin Hood, whether Robin Hood was real or just a figment of some balladier's imagination. But our quest here is the 10 words we have to learn from this text. And we will start with the very first one, and that is exploits. Now, I will read this part back so that you can get the word in its context. In the text, we have, possibly as early as the 12th century, traveling minstrels began singing ballads in praise of the exploits of a thief named Robin Hood. So, if we think about the word exploits, and by the way, it is spelled exploits, exploits. Now you have to pay attention. Exploits here is a noun and it's a plural noun. We always have it as exploits. It is so different from the verb exploit. So we don't want to mix those. We're just talking about the noun, the plural noun, exploits. And here, obviously we're talking about something good, actually something great, because the minstrels sang ballads in praise. They were praising the exploits of Robin Hood. So, what is the meaning of exploits? Now, exploits are notable deeds, feats, or actions, especially ones that are noble or heroic. So, that's the meaning of exploits. And by the way, I want you to pay close attention because when we're done explaining the 10 words, we will do an exercise together. I will ask you questions and give you a couple of seconds to think before you can answer. And of course, we have the Quizlet interactive activities, the downloadable PDF, and the quiz with the transcript all on my website, and you can find the link in the description. But for now, let's continue with the second word, and this one is endear. Endear is spelled E-N-D-E-A-R. And here in the text, we have it in the following excerpt. His skill in archery, his free and easy lifestyle in Sherwood Forest, and perhaps most of all, his ability to outwit the Sheriff of Nottingham endeared him to the common people. So what is the meaning of endeared? Does it mean that people hated him because of these things? They hated him because his lifestyle and his legendary skills in archery or his ability to outwit the Sheriff of Nottingham? I don't think so. Endear must have a positive meaning here. And actually it does. Endear is a verb, and if something endears you to someone, or if you endear yourself to them, you become popular with them and well-liked by them. So that is the meaning of endear. Let's move on to the next word.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Looking to enhance your English skills while exploring a world of knowledge? Then English Plus Podcast website is just for you. Dive into diverse topics ranging from science to literature, history to business, and myths to modern insights. Each episode from our podcast or article from our magazine is a journey of learning and discovery, designed to not only improve your language skills, but also broaden your understanding of the world. Join us at English Plus Podcast, where language meets limitless learning. Tune in today and take your English to the next level. Visit EnglishPlusPodcast.com to start your journey. English Plus Podcast, language, learning, enlightenment. Never stop learning with English Plus. In the text we have, in ballad after ballad, Robin Hood was consistently pictured as one who stole only from the rich. So here, in ballad after ballad, Robin Hood was consistently. The word we are interested in is consistent, and that is spelled C-O-N-S-I-S-T-E-N-T. What is the meaning of consistently? Now here in Ballad After Ballad, we're talking about the story of Robin Hood not according to one minstrel, but actually according to all the minstrels and all the ballads. And all the minstrels and ballads talked about the same story. So the story was consistent in a way. It was consistently pictured. Obviously, we are using consistently here as an adverb, but the meaning is the same. So what do we mean by consistent? Is it something that changes, or is it something that doesn't change? Well, obviously, since we have the same story from different ballads and different minstrels, so it means that's something that doesn't change. But we have a little bit more meaning to this word, so we'll talk about it in detail. Now, consistent is an adjective, and someone who is consistent always behaves in the same way, has the same attitudes towards people or things, or achieves the same level of success in something. So that is someone who is consistent. So, for example, when we talk about football players or athletes in general, consistency is very important because it's not enough to be perfect in one match and then go to sleep for the rest of the season. You have to be consistent. So sometimes good players, good and consistent players, are better than brilliant players who just play a couple of matches brilliantly, but then they play badly for the rest of the season. So consistency, or in the adjective form consistent, means to be always in the same way and have the same level. Now, obviously, we have it here in the text as an adverb, consistently, but consistent also applies to ideas and fact. And the meaning is close, of course, but it's a little bit different. So let's talk about that. If one fact or idea is consistent with another fact or idea, that means that these facts or ideas do not contradict each other. Like when we say compatible ideas or harmonious ideas. So that was about consistent. Let's move on to the next word. In the same sentence, we have in ballad after ballad, Robin Hood was consistently pictured as one who stole only from the rich and shared the spoils of his actions with the poor. So what do we have here? We have spoils, S-P-O-I-L-S. What is the meaning of spoils? Now, spoils are valuables seized by violence, especially in war. Now, that doesn't mean that Robin Hood was a violent man, but the spoils he got from the rich, he didn't get by asking. He actually stole, and he resorted to force sometimes. Maybe this word is used more when we talk about wars, but it is proper to use in this context too. And now let's move to the next word. And here in the text we have, even though the legends portray him as the enemy of the nobility, Robin Hood possessed an unflagging loyalty to the king. So here, the legends portray him, P-O-R-T-R-A-Y. Now, portray is a verb. What does it mean? When an actor or actress portrays someone, he or she plays that person in a play or film. But when a writer or artist portrays something, he or she writes a description or produces a painting of it. And if a film, book, or television program portrays someone in a certain way, it represents them in that way. And this is the exact meaning we have here. Now, the legends portray Robin Hood as the enemy of the nobility. The legends represent Robin Hood as the enemy of the nobility. And in the same sentence we just used from the text, we have the word unflagging. We said Robin Hood possessed an unflagging loyalty to his king, Richard the Lionhearted. Unflagging is spelled U-N-F-L-A-G-G-I-N-G. What is the meaning of unflagging? Does it mean wavering? Does it mean changing? Does it change from time to time? He was loyal, then he was not? Or does unflagging mean unchanging? Well, actually, it means something that doesn't change. If you describe something such as support, effort, or enthusiasm as unflagging, you mean that it does not stop or get less as time passes. It does not change. Like unflagging love or loyalty like we have in the example here. So that was about unflagging. What about the next word, which is jocular? Now, jocular is spelled Jocular. We were talking about the companions of Robin Hood. We talked about Little John. We talked about Alan a Dale, and we talked about Friar Tuck. And we said in the text, the fat and jocular Friar Tuck kept everyone amused. Now, if you know the story, you know how Friar Tuck is like. Yes, he was fat, he was jocular. Now, jocular, what does that mean? Does it mean that he was kind of boring and he kept always to himself? He never talked to anybody. He was kind of bad-tempered person, or just the opposite? Well, actually, it is the opposite of that. If you say that someone has a jocular manner, or he is jocular, you mean that they are cheerful and often make jokes or try to make people laugh. And that was exactly Friar Tuck in the story. And now we'll move to the next word, ultimate. In our text here, we said, this story included all the traditional romantic qualities, dangers, secret meetings, disguises, and the ultimate triumph of true love. Now, what is the meaning of the ultimate? The ultimate is something that happens after a long series of events, and usually it is the thing that everybody's waiting for, or something like that. So we use ultimate to describe the final result or aim of a long series of events. And of course, we can use ultimate in other meanings as well. For example, you use ultimate to describe the original source or cause of something, like when you say plants are the ultimate source of all foodstuffs. Or you use ultimate to describe the most important or powerful thing of a particular kind, like when we say, my experience as player, coach, and manager has prepared me for this ultimate challenge. And we can use ultimate to describe the most extreme and unpleasant example of a particular thing. Like when we say bringing back the death penalty would be the ultimate abuse of human rights. And finally, you use ultimate to describe the best possible example of a particular thing, like when we say he is the ultimate English gentleman. So obviously, we use ultimate in a lot of contexts and a lot of situations. In our context here, we used it to talk about the final result or aim of a long series of events. And now let's move to our next word, and that is figment. In our text, we said, was Robin Hood a living, breathing human being or merely the figment of some balladier's imagination? Now, we use this expression all the time. Is he real or is he a figment of your imagination? Or we say, is it real or is it a figment of your imagination? Is that real or are you only imagining things? And we use the word figment, F-I-G-M-E-N-T, to talk about this. And figment is a fantastic notion, invention, or fabrication. So, in other words, it is not real. It is something merely imagined or made up in the mind. And now for our last word, before we move to the practice that we're going to do together, we have the word scenario. Scenario is spelled S-C-E-N-A-R-I-O, scenario. Well, you can hear this word in two different pronunciations. We say scenario and scenario. In our text, we have those who claim him to be real offer an interesting and believable scenario. Now, what is the meaning of scenario here? If you talk about a likely or possible scenario, you are talking about the way in which a situation may develop. And of course, we use the scenario for films, like when we say the scenario of a film is a piece of writing that gives an outline of the story. But this is not the scenario we used in our text here. In our text, we're talking about a possible scenario for Robin Hood's believable character. And that is when you talk about the way in which a situation may develop, and it should be logical and believable. Like we said here, believable scenario. Sometimes people may present unbelievable scenarios. or improbable or even impossible scenarios. So now we've talked about all the words we need to talk about in this text. We will test our knowledge of these words in this little practice we're going to do together. I'm going to read a sentence for you and give you the choice between two words to fill in the blank in this sentence. And you will have to decide, based on what we just learned, which word works better to complete the sentence. So our first sentence, we have two words. Use one of these words to fill in the blank or to complete the sentence. The words are figment or scenario. So which word is right if I want to complete the sentence? The attorney described the figment or scenario leading to the arrest of the accused bank robber. The attorney described the figment or scenario leading to the arrest of the accused bank robber. Well, if you chose scenario, congratulations, because that is the correct word to complete this sentence. Now, it's not figment because we're not talking about imagination here. We're talking about the way in which the situation may develop, or actually how it developed here, leading to the arrest of the accused bank robber. And now let's move to the next word. The two words we have here are exploits or spoils. Which word should we use in this sentence? Stories of Davy Crockett's seem to increase in number and importance after he died at the Alamo. So stories of Davy Crockett's exploits or spoils seem to increase in number and importance after he died at the Alamo. Exploits or spoils? Well, if you think exploits, you are absolutely right, because we're talking about his heroic acts or feats or actions, whatever you want to call it. So exploits is our word here. Now let's move to the third sentence that we have here. The choice is between endearing or unflagging. The soldiers' devotion to their country and their commander sustained them at Valley Forge. So here, is it the soldiers' endearing devotion, or is it the soldiers' unflagging devotion to their country and their commander sustained them at Valley Forge? Obviously, if you're thinking about something that doesn't change and doesn't become less in time, that is unflagging. So if you chose unflagging, that is the correct word. And now for our next sentence, and we're going to choose between exploited or endeared. The sentence is, her work with the poorest of the poor endeared or exploited Mother Teresa to millions throughout the world. So her work, did that endear her to the world? Did that endear Mother Teresa to the world? Or did it exploit Mother Teresa to the world? Well, obviously, that made her popular. That made everybody know her and love her. So the word we're searching for is endear. And now for our next sentence, and the words we're going to choose between are figments and spoils. Now the sentence goes, one of the figments or spoils of winning an elective office is being provided a car and driver. So one of the figments or spoils of winning an elective office is being provided a car and driver. So which one is it? Is it spoils or figments? Well, we're talking about getting a car and a driver, so that is a kind of a bonus. And a bonus, the word we're searching for here is spoils. Figments, we're talking about imaginary stuff, but this is not. We're talking about what you get if you win. So the word we're searching for here is spoils. And now we will test our understanding in a different way. I will give you a sentence, and I will use one of the words in this sentence that we just talked about, and you will have to decide whether the vocabulary word I used in the sentence is correctly used or wrongly used. And maybe we should use another word instead. So I'll start with the very first sentence. Is the branch of a fig tree referred to as a figment? Is it fig tree, so the branch is figment? Yes or no? Obviously, the answer to this one is no, definitely no, because figment has nothing to do with plants. Figment is a piece of your imagination, not a fig tree, even if it starts with fig, but figment is something else entirely. So it is wrong. Maybe here the branch of a fig tree referred to as the branch of a fig tree. I don't know. Maybe it has a specific scientific name I don't know about, but it's definitely not figment. And now the next sentence. Do employers want workers who consistently arrive on time for work? And the word here we used is consistently. Is it used correctly? Do employers want workers who consistently arrive on time for work? Now the answer is absolutely yes. It is spot on, exactly the way we want it, because employers want workers who arrive on time every day, consistently. Not just once a month or once a week. They have to be consistent about that. And now for our next sentence. Could an army lose several battles, yet ultimately win the war? So our word here is ultimate, and we used it as an adverb ultimately. Could an army lose several battles, yet ultimately win the war? Did we use ultimately correctly in the sentence? If your answer is yes, then congratulations, because that is the correct answer. We used ultimately in a correct way in our sentence here because we're talking about a long series of events and ultimately, after all the series, win the war. So the army can lose some battles, but ultimately win the war. Absolutely correct. Now the next sentence, did Benedict Arnold portray his country during the Revolutionary War? Did Benedict Arnold portray his country during the Revolutionary War? Our word obviously is portray. If you don't know Benedict Arnold, he was a senior officer at the time of the Revolutionary War against the British. And Benedict Arnold is obviously American, but at some time he switched sides and fought for the British. So is portray the word we're searching for here? Is it correctly used? Well, the answer is no, because the word we're looking for here is betray, not portray. B-E-T-R-A-Y, betrayed his country. Benedict Arnold betrayed his country during the Revolutionary War. So it's definitely not portray. And our last exercise for today is this sentence. Is an old broken down car sometimes called a jocular? The word is jocular. Is it correctly used here? Is an old broken down car sometimes called a jocular? What do you think? Is it used correctly or not? Well, obviously not, because jocular we're talking about cheerful, we're talking about funny people, we're not talking about cars, and of course we're not talking about old broken down cars. The word we want here is junk, not jocular. Is an old broken down car sometimes called a junk? Yes, that's the word we want, not jocular. So that brings us to the end of our word power episode. I hope you found the episode useful, and I hope you like the idea that we are practicing a little bit together after we finish explaining the words. Don't forget that you can find the full transcript of this episode, plus the interactive activities on Quizlet, the downloadable PDF, and the quiz in a post on my website, and I have added the link to this post in the description of this episode. So please take the link and do the extra exercises. Take this extra step to make these words you learned here today permanent in your active vocabulary bank. This was Danny, your host, saying thank you very much for being with me today, and I will see you next time.